She tells you she loves you. You can see it in her eyes, feel it in how she holds you. There's genuine affection there, real connection. You're not imagining it. And then 3 months later, she's gone, saying she needs space, needs to find herself, needs something different. And you're standing there destroyed because you did everything right, treated her well, gave her attention, built something real, and it still wasn't enough. And here's what's killing you. You know she meant it when she said she loved you. You know the connection was real. So what the hell happened? Why does every relationship follow this same pattern? You build something beautiful and then watch it collapse for reasons that make no sense. And the answer is going to hurt, but you need to hear it. Her biology won't let her stay, even when she consciously wants to, even when she's happy, even when you're doing everything right. There's a program running beneath her awareness that will eventually force her to leave, and she has no idea it's happening. What if I told you that female biology contains a built-in exit mechanism that activates automatically in long-term relationships? What if I told you that no matter how good you are, how much she loves you, how perfect the relationship seems, her evolutionary programming will eventually create doubt, restlessness, and the need to leave? What if the reason every relationship you've built has collapsed wasn't because you failed, but because you were fighting against 200,000 years of evolutionary adaptation designed to make her leave? This is destroying millions of men right now, good men. Men who did everything society told them to do, built careers, stayed loyal, treated women with respect, created stable relationships, and watched them fall apart anyway. And they have no idea they were fighting biological programming that predates civilization itself. Programming that doesn't care about her conscious desires or your efforts. Programming that will win every single time unless you understand what is really happening in her biology when that shift occurs. I've watched this pattern repeat itself across millennia. Different cultures, different eras, different relationship structures. Same outcome. The woman who swore she'd never leave eventually leaves. The connection that felt unbreakable breaks. The love that seemed eternal fades, not because anyone did anything wrong, but because her biology contains mechanisms that force relationship disruption. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how this works. But I need to warn you, this isn't going to make you feel better. This isn't going to give you hope that the right woman exists who doesn't have this programming. Because they all have it, every single one. It's not a bug in female psychology. It's a feature of female biology. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Pay very close attention. Here's the truth most men refuse to accept. Female biology is designed for serial monogamy with periodic exits, not lifelong pair bonding. Her system contains multiple biological mechanisms that create relationship dissatisfaction over time, regardless of relationship quality. These mechanisms activate automatically. They don't require her conscious participation. They don't respond to how well you treat her. They simply run their program, create the feelings, force the behaviors, and she interprets those feelings as truth about the relationship when they actually just biology executing its ancient script. And this is why you can do everything perfectly and still lose her. Because you're not competing against other men or her standards. You're competing against evolutionary programming that was designed to make her leave. You see, men have been programmed to believe that if you're good enough, if you provide enough, if you love her enough, she'll stay. Society tells you build stability, and women will choose you. Your father tells you be a good man, and you, LL, have a good relationship. Every romantic narrative says true. Love conquers all, but here's what actually happens in reality. The better you are to her, the more stable you become. The more her biology interprets that as low genetic diversity risk and starts scanning for exit routes. Her system was designed for an environment where staying with one man too long meant genetic stagnation for her offspring. So it developed mechanisms to create discomfort in long-term stability. And modern women don't know this is happening. They just feel the restlessness, interpret it as something wrong with the relationship, and leave, destroying something real because biology told them to. Let me show you how this plays out. I watched a man spend 8 years building a relationship. Entrepreneur, financially successful, emotionally available, treated her like a priority. Their life together was objectively good. Stable income, beautiful home, regular travel, deep conversations, active intimacy. Friends commented on how perfect they seemed together. And then suddenly, she started creating problems where none existed, picking fights over minor things, testing him constantly, creating emotional distance. And within 6 months she ended it, said she felt trapped, needed freedom, had to find herself. He was devastated because nothing had actually gone wrong. The relationship quality hadn't declined. He hadn't changed his behavior, but her biology had activated its exit program. And once that program starts running, conscious desire to stay becomes irrelevant. The feelings it creates override everything else. And she leaves convinced it's the right decision, not understanding she just responded to biological programming. It has nothing to do with relationship quality. Now compare that to what happens in the rare cases where biology doesn't fully activate. I've observed women who stay in long-term relationships, and there is always a pattern. Either the man maintains enough unpredictability that her system never fully settles, or she has lower than average biological drive for novelty, or external factors like children or religion override the biological impulse. But in the vast majority of cases, once her biology decides it's time to exit, the relationship is over. Doesn't matter what he does, doesn't matter how much she consciously wants to stay. The biological program creates feelings strong enough to override conscious intention, and she follows those feelings straight out of the relationship, convinced she's making the right choice when she's actually just executing evolutionary code. The difference isn't about him. It's about whether her biology activated its exit sequence. And that activation is largely outside conscious control, triggered by biological mechanisms she doesn't know exist. And when it happens, you will watch the woman who loved you become someone else. Someone who finds fault in everything. Someone who seems almost hostile to the relationship continuing. And you'll think you did something wrong, but you didn't. Her biology just started running its exit program. And that program is extremely powerful, designed to override pair bonding chemicals, designed to create doubt where none existed, designed to make her leave. Before I reveal the 5 biological mechanisms that force her to exit relationships, even when she consciously wants to stay, drop a comment right now telling me if you've ever watched a woman who claimed to love you suddenly become cold, distant, and eventually leave for reasons that made no sense. I need to know how many men have experienced this exact pattern, because what I'm about to reveal will explain every confusing relationship ending you've ever witnessed. I've watched human pair bonding for longer than you can imagine. Watched the same pattern repeat across every culture that ever existed. The woman says she'll stay forever, means it when she says it, and then leaves anyway. And men always think they failed, always think they weren't good enough, always think if they'd done something different, she would have stayed. But they're wrong. They were fighting biological programming that predates language itself, programming that's designed to win. And until you understand that you're not fighting her conscious mind, you're fighting mechanisms that run beneath her awareness and override her stated intentions, you'll keep making the same mistake, thinking the right behavior will make her stay, when the truth is, her biology will make her leave regardless of your behavior. But here's what you need to understand before I show you the mechanisms. This isn't her fault. She doesn't want this programming. She doesn't consciously choose to leave relationships that make her happy. Her biology forces feelings that override what she wants, creates restlessness she can't explain, doubt she can't justify, need for change she can't rationalize. And she's trapped between what she consciously desires and what her biology forces her to feel. And the biology always wins, always, because feelings are more powerful than thoughts, and her biology controls the feelings. And when the feelings say leave, she leaves, convinced it's what she really wants, not understanding it's what her biology demanded. Here's the first mechanism that forces her exit. Call it mate value recalibration. Her biology contains a system that continuously monitors your value relative to other available options. This isn't conscious. She's not aware it's happening, but her brain is constantly running cost-benefit analysis on the relationship. And here's the critical part. This system is biased toward finding reasons to exit, not reasons to stay, because in ancestral environments, staying too long with one mate meant missing better genetic opportunities. So her biology evolved to weight potential alternatives more heavily than current relationship quality, which means even when you're objectively high value, even when the relationship is good, her system is scanning for signs that someone better might exist. And over time, that constant scanning creates dissatisfaction regardless of reality. Think about what this means for relationship stability. You could be the best version of yourself, physically fit, financially successful, emotionally intelligent, treating her well, and her mate value recalibration system is still comparing you to idealized alternatives. And those idealized alternatives always win the comparison because they're not real. They're fantasy, but her biology doesn't know that. It just knows the fantasy version of another man scores higher on her unconscious evaluation than the real version of you. And that creates feelings. Feelings of maybe she's settling, maybe she could do better, maybe she's missing out. And those feelings grow over time, regardless of how good you actually are, because the system is designed to create them, designed to make her question the relationship, designed to generate exit motivation. I've watched this destroy relationships that should have lasted. The man is doing everything right. The woman is objectively happy. External observers see a perfect couple, and then her mate value recalibration system starts firing. She begins noticing other men more, comparing you to them, finding flaws in you that didn't exist before, not because you changed, but because her biological comparison system shifted into exit mode. And once that happens, your actual value becomes irrelevant. She's not comparing you to reality anymore. She's comparing you to fantasy. And fantasy always wins. And she starts pulling away, creating distance, preparing to leave. And you think you failed when actually her biology just executed its program, generated the feelings necessary to force exit. And now she's following those feelings, their truth about the relationship, when they're just biology doing what it was designed to do. But the mate value recalibration is just the beginning. The second mechanism is even more insidious: ovulation. Cycle override research shows that women's attraction patterns shift based on menstrual cycle. During high fertility windows, they're attracted to different traits than during low fertility periods. And here's what this means for relationships. The man she chooses might be optimal for one part of her cycle, but not for the other. So roughly half the month, her biology is telling her she picked wrong. This creates constant low-level dissatisfaction that accumulates over time. She doesn't understand why she feels differently about you at different times, why sometimes she's attracted and sometimes she feels nothing. Her conscious mind tries to make sense of this inconsistency and usually lands on, it must be something wrong with him or the relationship, when actually it's just her biology cycling through different attraction algorithms, and that cycling creates instability that eventually manifests as relationship doubt. Watch how this shows up in her behavior. Week 1, she's affectionate, engaged, pursuing intimacy. You think everything's great. Week 3, she's cold, distant, finding problems. You think you did something wrong. Week 4, she's back to normal. You're confused. This cycle repeats every month, and over years, it creates accumulated doubt. She starts thinking, if I have to force myself to be attracted half the time, maybe he's not right for me. She doesn't realize her attraction inconsistency is biological cycling, not relationship incompatibility. And eventually, those doubts become strong enough that she leaves, convinced she was never really attracted, when actually her biology was just running conflicting programs that made consistent attraction impossible. And you're left confused because you know the attraction was real. You felt it, saw it, experienced it, but you also saw it disappear and return in patterns that made no sense. And that's because her ovulation cycle was overriding pair bonding chemistry, creating windows where biology told her to exit, and eventually, one of those windows lasts long enough that she makes the decision to leave. I've watched this pattern for thousands of years. Same cycle, different faces. The woman is in love, genuinely bonded, and then her fertile window hits and suddenly, she's evaluating you against warrior genetics' dark triad traits, masculine dominance signals you don't possess, and for those 5 days, her biology is screaming wrong choice. And then it passes, and she loves you again. But the damage accumulates. Those periods of biological rejection add up over time, create cumulative doubt, and eventually she leaves during one of those windows, follows the biology, ends the relationship. And by the time her cycle shifts back, she's already committed to the decision, already told herself a story about why you weren't right, and the relationship is over, not because you failed, but because her biology kept creating windows where she felt you weren't optimal. And eventually, those windows won. And here's where this gets truly tragic. The third mechanism, investment threshold testing. Female biology contains a system that continuously tests male investment levels. This isn't conscious manipulation. It's automatic biological programming. Her system needs to verify that you'll invest resources in her and her potential offspring. So it creates tests, situations designed to see if you'll prioritize her, sacrifice for her, prove ongoing commitment. And here's the critical part. These tests never stop. They don't end when you pass them. They don't end when you prove yourself. They continue forever, escalating in difficulty, because her biology can never be certain enough. The stakes of choosing wrong were too high in ancestral environments. So her system evolved to test indefinitely. And men who don't understand this think they can pass enough tests to finally be secure. But they can't. The testing is permanent. And eventually, even the best men fail a test, get exhausted by constant proving. And when they fail, her biology interprets that as investment decline, triggers exit programming. Let me show you what this looks like in reality. Early relationship, she tests small things. Will he text back quickly? Will he change plans for her? Will he pay attention when she's talking? You pass these easily. Relationship continues. Year 2. Tests escalate. Will he sacrifice career opportunities to spend time with her? Will he confront other men who disrespect her? Will he maintain attraction when she gains weight? Some of these you pass. Some you fail. Each failure gets logged by her biological monitoring system. Year 5. Tests are extreme. Will he stay when she deliberately creates drama? Will he maintain desire when she withdraws intimacy? Will he choose her over his male friends consistently? And even men who passed hundreds of previous tests eventually fail one of these. They get tired, they push back, they establish a boundary. And her biology interprets that boundary as investment decline proof. You won't provide unlimited resources. And the exit programming activates. She starts emotionally withdrawing, preparing to leave. And you're confused because you've proven yourself 1,000 times. But her biology doesn't care about the 1,000 successes. It only cares about the most recent failure. And that failure triggered the exit sequence. You know what really reveals the tragedy of this mechanism? Even women who understand this consciously, who know they're testing, who want to stop, can't stop because the testing is biological, not psychological. Her conscious mind doesn't control it. Her biology generates. The feelings creates the need for reassurance, and she follows those feelings, even when she consciously knows she shouldn't. I've watched women sabotage perfect relationships with testing they knew was irrational. Watched them create crisis to see if he'd stay. Watched them punish men for failing tests that were designed to be unfailable. And the whole time they're thinking, why am I doing this? Why can't I just be happy with what I have? But they can't stop because biology is running the program, generating the doubt, creating the tests. And she's just along for the ride, trapped between knowing the relationship is good and feeling like she needs to verify his commitment one more time. And that one more time never ends. The verification is infinite, and eventually it destroys the relationship. But investment testing pales compared to the fourth mechanism, And this one explains why she leaves even when you're doing everything right. Genetic diversity imperative. Female biology contains a program that creates dissatisfaction with genetic familiarity over time. In ancestral environments, women who stayed with one mate too long produced offspring with lower genetic diversity, reduced immunity, higher vulnerability to diseases. So natural selection favored women whose biology created restlessness after extended pair bonding, forced them to seek genetic variety, even when the current mate was high quality. And modern women inherited this programming, which means no matter how good you are, after enough time, her biology will create feelings that push her toward exit. Not because you declined in quality, but because her system detected genetic familiarity and activated diversity-seeking mode. This is why the 7-year itch is real, not because something magical happens at 7 years, but because that's roughly the timeline where genetic familiarity triggers activate for most women. Her biology has had enough time to assess your genetics, determined that further reproduction with you creates diversity risk, and starts generating feelings of needing something different, needing change, needing to explore. And she doesn't understand these feelings are biological imperatives, unrelated to relationship quality. She just knows she feels trapped, bored, like something is missing. And she interprets those feelings as the relationship being wrong, when actually her biology just hit its genetic diversity timer and activated the exit program. And here's the cruelest part. The better the relationship was, the more stable and secure, the stronger her biology pushes for exit. I've seen this destroy marriages that were perfect by every measurable standard. 15 years together, raised children, built wealth, maintained attraction, deep friendship. And then suddenly, she's talking about not feeling alive anymore, needing to find herself, wondering if this is all there is. And he thinks he did something wrong, thinks if he'd been more exciting or more attentive, she'd stay. But he's wrong. Her genetic diversity imperative, activated right on schedule, created feelings powerful enough to override 15 years of pair bonding. And now she's leaving, convinced she's making the right choice, pursuing authenticity, when actually she's just responding to biological programming that detected genetic familiarity and demanded exit. And a year later, when the new relationship hits, the same timer should do it again. Never understanding that the problem isn't the men she chooses, it's the biological mechanism that forces periodic exits, regardless of relationship quality. And here's the final mechanism that makes long-term female commitment nearly impossible. Social proof dependency. Female mate choice is heavily influenced by other women's evaluations. This made sense ancestrally when women lived in tight social groups and needed to choose mates who were valued by the collective. But modern women inherited this programming, and it creates massive relationship instability because it means her attraction to you is partially determined by whether other women validate that choice. If her friends think you're great, her attraction increases. If her friends question the relationship, her attraction decreases. And here's the problem. Female friend groups are biologically programmed to subtly undermine each other's relationships, not consciously, but through competition dynamics that create doubt. So she's in a relationship with you that makes her happy, but her friends are constantly making comments that create uncertainty. You could do better. Are you sure he's right for you? Don't you want more excitement? And because her social proof system weights peer validation heavily, these comments create actual doubt, change her feelings, make her question something that was working. And eventually, the accumulated social pressure creates enough doubt that she leaves a good relationship, not because it failed, but because her peer group convinced her it wasn't optimal. Think about what this means. You could be perfect for her by every objective measure, but if her friends disapprove, her biology will generate doubt strong enough to override her own experience. She'll start seeing flaws that her friends pointed out but didn't exist before, interpreting your behaviors through the negative lens her social circle created. And this feedback loop intensifies until she believes the relationship is wrong, leaves you. And 6 months later, is with someone objectively worse, but who her friends approve of. And she's happier because social proof dependency is creating positive feelings even though the relationship quality declined. This is the insanity of biological programming. It doesn't optimize for her actual well-being. It optimizes for ancestral environments that no longer exist. And she's trapped in a system that makes her attraction contingent on peer validation, which means you're not just maintaining a relationship with her, you're maintaining approval with her entire social network. And eventually, that competition and doubt will poison her feelings about you. And she'll leave, and both of you will suffer because she followed biological programming that had nothing to do with relationship quality. Now here's why these 5 mechanisms working together make long-term female commitment almost impossible in modern environments. Mate value recalibration is constantly scanning for better options. And social proof dependency makes her attraction contingent on peer approval. And all 5 of these are running simultaneously, all generating feelings and impulses and doubts. And she's trying to maintain relationship commitment while her biology is running 5 separate exit programs. And here's what men don't understand. She's not choosing to listen to these programs. She doesn't know they exist. She just experiences the feelings they create and assumes those feelings are truth about the relationship. Assumes that restlessness means something's wrong. Assumes that doubt means incompatibility. Assumes that social pressure means she made the wrong choice. And she follows those feelings straight out of relationships that were actually good, destroying something real because biology told her to. And the tragedy is, she suffers too. She doesn't want to feel this way, doesn't want to leave relationships that make her happy, doesn't want to be constantly questioning and testing and seeking, but her biology won't let her stop, periodically. So modern women inherited the genes of the switchers, the ones whose biology created exit mechanisms, and that biology is now running in an environment where serial monogamy is stigmatized, but the biological drives have been changed. So here's how this destroys relationships in practice. You meet her, attraction forms, genuine connection develops, you both feel like this could be the one. Early stages are amazing. Pair bonding chemicals are high. Biological testing hasn't fully activated. You're passing her unconscious evaluations. Everything feels right. Thinks maybe you weren't right for her. And she leaves, convinced it's the right decision. And you're destroyed because you know the love was real. You saw it, felt it, experienced it, and you don't understand how it died. And the answer is, it didn't die.